Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Review with me, EJ Borghardt. I wanted to thank you all for coming, and let's get started and take a look at what happened in this past week's chapter of Ahir, Guardian of Malor. Ahir has been taken, he's been captured, and that just completely destroyed Trixie. She feels like everyone has abandoned her. Her parents who are dead are gone. Ahir is gone. Milton has gone missing. She feels just completely all alone. I think I did an okay job of portraying that in the scene with her. If you guys have any suggestions on how I could write it better, I'd be grateful. I guess I haven't had too many scenes where people are just completely and utterly crushed like that. But then Trixie does get some good news. She finds out that Milton is still alive. He's been found, and he has been rushed to the hospital. And when they get there, they find out that Milton actually has lost an eye to Torjad. So, yeah, that happened. The Hawk's kind of a jerk. Anyway, they start to come up with a plan for how they can go to the Erzaverum world and find a way to save Ahir. They're not entirely convinced at this point that they will be able to save Ahir, but at the very least, they know they have to stop Lane Khan before he destroys both worlds. And the police officers, Alicia and Daniel, are not very happy that these kids are about to go off to the Erzaverum world and leave them behind. They want to help out too. But Milton convinces them that they would only get in the way and gives them a very important job of watching over the portal to make sure that no one else accidentally goes through it. And then they go over to the Erzaverum world and they meet with King Darduo. They start laying their plans for how they're going to go and take out Lane Khan. They're requesting help from the Avis Severum since this is their fight. They're invincible, and they could cause a bit of a distraction to keep a little pressure off of Milton and Trixie. Three very important things for them. And then they get to meet with Laz Crit, the legendary blacksmith who has made all of the artifacts that they have used. And he takes them to his vault, where he finds two more artifacts for them to use. And his vault is just filled with artifacts that have abilities that the people in this world really don't find a use for or want to use, because, yes, this makes everything easier and better, but there's really no point to it because everything is already pretty gosh darn good. But he does find a pair of gauntlets from Milton that will allow him to fly. This will help him to get better positions for his sniping and be even more mobile than he already was with his bow. And Trixie gets a helmet that gives her super speed. This will allow her to be or provide better coverage with her shield. She can be in more places more quickly and just be a bigger help on the battlefield. So yeah, that was basically what happened this past week's chapter. If you haven't read it yet, I suggest you check it out. Just the full chapter just went up on my blog yesterday, and which is Saturday if you're checking this video out on Sunday. If not, then it happened on Saturday. And now, we will take a look at what is coming next week. Next week, we have another chapter of Rebellion on Aquor. And, so I'm going to give you a little bit of the history with Rebellion on Aquor, and we'll look at what's coming up next week. So, previously in Rebellion on Aquor, we're introduced to Terran, a young man who's lost his parents, was raised in an orphanage, and now lives and works with the orphanage. He lives on a planet called Aquor, which was originally a planet that was completely covered in water. Scientists created this special device that took a majority of the water off the surface of the planet and created an orbiting aquatic moon that they can take water from and put more water on as they need it. This is pretty amazing technological advancement. Doesn't get a lot of highlights in the book. You just got some behind the scenes look there. Boom. And the government on this planet is highly oppressive. They keep raising the taxes and making things more miserable for the people. But to be fair, the people are kind of forcing them to do this by rebelling against them and making things more difficult for the government, so they need more money to do what they've been doing, but it's still harsher than it needs to be, and that's what started it in the first place. Anyway, so Terran is in this rebellion, and the rebellion is being assisted by Scott Daly of Daly Devices Incorporated. It is a private company that both does technological advances, and at the moment they have a mining operation on Aquar because they are going after quarite, a very, very valuable metal. They feel by having their own miners on the planet, they can get the material cheaper and more of it. And so they're racing against the government to see who can get more quarite. But yes, Scott is aiding the rebellion. He is leading them mostly on sabotage missions to slow the government's harvesting of quarite, and mostly just he says that this is to put pressure on the government to make them get into a position where the rebellion can finally strike and take them down once and for all, and put a good government in place that is actually for the people. It was on one of these sabotage missions that Kyle was captured. He was a member of the rebellion. He got taken prisoner, and the rebellion tried to form up a rescue attempt to save him. That rescue attempt was made up of 8 members of the rebellion, I believe. It might have been 7. Anyway, they go into the pedestal, which is the place where the parliament, which is the government for this planet, meets, and they're able to sneak in, unfortunately sending a bunch of untrained people with a grudge against the government into a government facility. Sometimes doesn't necessarily equate great stealth. One of them decides to take his anger out on one of the statues in the pedestal. That alerts the guards. They make it downstairs, thinking they have been undiscovered, and manage to free Kyle from the cell, only to find out that the guards had them surrounded, and they all end up getting captured. Except for Matthew, who is able to escape, because he was unseen in a different part of the room when this happened. And he goes outside, he finds Terran, he tells Terran what just happened. Terran goes to Scott, asks for help, and Scott essentially says, no, I won't provide you any help because when I offered help before, you didn't take it. Scott had advised against doing this mission, mostly because it was a big risk to him and his company. Well, his father's company, but he's in charge on this planet. Sneak peek of what's happening next week. So, yes, that is a brief summary of what has happened up to this point. Now, some little tidbits about what's coming next week. Someone is able to break into the pedestal, and he is able to free the prisoners. Kind of makes the guards look silly, too. Not gonna lie. Yes, and then obviously the rebellion meets to figure out what they should be doing next, what their next move should be, and we go then to a meeting with Scott, who his meeting with his company, his head scientists, trying to figure out how to basically do crowd control. And then there's going to be a very, very important scientist that will be introduced. I encourage you to remember the scientist that I'm talking about. You probably won't know which one I'm talking about. You might be able to figure it out. He's going to be very, very important later on in the story. So yes, that is a preview of what is coming out next week. Come back on Monday for the first part, and I will be posting parts 2 and 3 on Wednesday and Friday next week. And as always, I will have another audio chapter of A Here. A Here Chapter 8 will be going up on Tuesday this week. It was a fun chapter. I enjoyed reading it. It was a long chapter. The video was over 20 minutes long, which some of these things are going to get pretty long. Considering that was only 7 pages, and I think I have a couple chapters that are 13 pages, so we'll see how long they end up being. Probably close to like 40 minutes. That'll be a long recording session. I might have to break those up into 2 parts. But also, I have a segment at the end of this where you guys can write in questions about me, about my writing, about anything, and I will answer them for you. And I do have a couple of questions this week for you. First question is, what is your greatest inspiration for your stories? And to be honest, I don't know that I would say I have a greatest inspiration. My stories seem to come from anywhere. I mean, literally, just about anything can inspire a story for me. Supermorpher actually was inspired by I was walking to class one day while I was in college, and I was flipping a coin in my hand up and down and catching it, and I had this song Every Time We Touch just going through my mind for some reason, and when I grabbed the coin with that song, all of a sudden I just imagined turning into metal because I had touched the coin. And thus the Supermorpher was born. And actually that song, sadly enough, isn't the only story that it has inspired for me. I have another story idea called The Godard Brothers. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm hoping to publish that one someday. I don't want to give anyone any ideas to steal the idea from me. But, so obviously music imagery, got an idea for a story from The Ring, from Lord of the Rings, slipping through the air, with the song Breaking the Habit from Linkin Park. Obviously 2 very unconnected things, but somehow it spurred an entire story idea on for me. But I get inspiration from the things I read, the things I watch, the games I play. If I'm going to play a game, I want it to have a really, really good story. That's one of the big things that I consider when buying games. My greatest inspiration, probably life. Or fantasy life, not real life. My brain? Everything? Everything. Everything is my greatest inspiration. And then, the other question for this week is, what originally inspired you to write? I thought about this because I got this question early on this week, and my original answer was, I don't remember, because I've been into writing since I was in middle school, and I don't remember what initially spurred that on. But then I thought back, and I'm going to say what originally inspired me to write would most likely be cartoons. As a kid, I was always watching cartoons, and then I did a lot of playing outside as a kid as well. And I'd always, be running around outside, going on adventures with Sonic, or helping Mario out with something, because there were Sonic and Mario cartoons, believe it or not. Back in the day, kids, yeah, way back when. I think those stories were initially what got me into writing. I mean, I love combining those stories together and having Mario and Sonic working together with the Super Friends, which if you haven't seen the Super Friends, good for you. I don't encourage it. Watch Justice League, much better version. But yeah, then I think that's what got me into creating stories. I think that when I got into 3rd grade, that's when I really got into reading. And I believe that also had something to do with me writing stories. And I think it was around that time that my family got its first computer. And there was a lot of stories that I started to write on the computer. Never got more than a couple pages in before I gave up and moved on to something else. ADHD brain. That's how it works. Can't stick with anything. But it wasn't until middle school that I started my first serious story, the KOTC, and actually working on getting the rewrite of that published. Just waiting on the cover art to be finished, and then I will be sending that off to be published. Hopefully get that soon, and I'll let you guys know for sure so that you can find it and pick up your own copy. But then I started working on my second series that I'm still working on, rewriting the original story, and I still haven't finished it. Haven't even gotten close to finishing it, but every time I rewrite it, the story gets better, and that encourages me to keep going. So, I wanted to thank you all for coming out today, for checking out this video, for seeing what's going on with my blog, and I encourage you all to come out. I have content come out every single day of the week, and thank you for joining me for another weekend review. I'll see you guys next week. Bye. Oh, don't forget to write me your questions. I love answering questions for you guys. Okay, now bye.